So I've learned a lot of things today, and now one more thing I've learned is don't let Kyle Popco introduce you, because then you're bound to not meet expectations. Thank you, Kyle, for setting me up for failure. I'll also say that being the after lunch speaker is always a prime and awesome spot. So I'll thank Phil for that. But we've got a lot of slides. I have some here. I'm hoping to be provocative, but let me see if I can do one of these things they teach you in like speech class or whatever. Let me try to give you a few of the things I would like you to take away up front first, right? So before we go to the slides, right? This is a really, really impressive group of people in this room and on the Zoom, right? A group of people who have an enormous amount of impact. But I give you the last takeaway first, which is this, right? The last slide will be if we're talking about what are the 4 or 5 things this group of people and the folks on both hybrid and in person can do in this day, in this week, in this month, in Pennsylvania, right, to try and create the maximum possible benefit from this set of money and the things we have in front of us, right? So how can we make Sasha's dire predictions as least true as possible, right? Knowing that he has been very effective for a very long time, right? So we're going to fight against the stream. And much of my talk was going to be a little bit more dire than maybe I would love, right? So the first thing I would like to say, we've been very happy in conversations here, but let me say something, right? This moment for broadband, this moment for economic development, it's about competition. Pennsylvania is in competition with 50 other states. And one of the things I said back there at Delphon, actually, very funny story about that Delphon thing, Alan Davidson got sick with COVID, the deputy got sick with COVID, we had like, 2 other people like on maternity. We ended up having to get like the undersecretary for like economic affairs or something. But one of the things that we said there and said often is that money is not going to get spent well everywhere, right? The history of federal money in this regard is that it does not get spent well everywhere. In fact, if it gets spent well anywhere, it will be a win, right? So there are places that win and lose, and economic development is a competition with those places. Economic development is always a competition, by the way, because there are only so many people who can drive it, right? Only so many companies that drive it, only so many startups that will really become the next thing. The people who are fighting for the workers have more places they can go in America than places that won't, right? So we're going to compete. Broadband is a critical piece, a fundamental piece of who will win and who will lose. By the way, if we don't get it perfect, the brandings, if they don't nail it exactly, that thread that needle perfectly, it will also be a competition within Pennsylvania for who will take this money and do really great leapfrogging things with it and who won't. Partly because some counties and communities won't try. And so the people in this room already have the leg up of thinking about it and working, right? This is the competition, broadband critical to it, right? What you're going to need to compete is a lot faster and a lot cheaper than anything you thought, probably. And it's scary, but it's because this bar is moving and moving very quickly. We are not aiming at a fixed target. In fact, we never have been aiming at a fixed target. And the history of this money, again, this is Sasha's sort of, history and lament. We constantly try and give money to places to meet a standard that was obsolete the day we set the standard, by the way. Need is the same. And then we get someone to build it out 5 years too late, and we cut a ribbon on the day we cut the ribbon, that place is obsolete because we met a minimum standard. So can we do it differently in Pennsylvania? And I will suggest that if we do things differently, we can upend that trend in Pennsylvania, right? But it will take doing things differently and you all getting it more. All right? So that's the speech, and let's see how much of it, and I'll try to use much time for questions after all. Let's have the real conversation. I want to hear from Cumberland about all the ways in which that's pie in the sky. That guy from Pitt doesn't always talk, right? Let's have this conversation. And maybe that'll wake us up, and you'll have a networking break, and then you can all give me a hard time after, yeah? All right, let's try. All right. The first thing, right? Demographics is testing. It just is. In America, if you're going to have economic growth and well-being, you're growing. And if you're not, you're not. There's not one state on the far end near where Pennsylvania is, right, that's got economic growth, commensurate with the country, right? Because it's losing the population, right? Now we've had this story, that 40-ish. By the way, I'll note that first bar is Utah, that green bar. Just remember that that's Utah, yeah? Demographics is testing. The places that have working age people are the ones that are going to win. If you're attracting working age people, your economies will grow. If you're not, you won't. And by the way, that top there with the red circle, that's Pittsburgh, right? We've known this story in Pittsburgh, right? That's not rural Pennsylvania, that's urban Pennsylvania, but that's true of the city of Pittsburgh too. If the city of Pittsburgh loses 3 more % of the population in the next 5 years, like it did in the last 5 years, we won't be a tier 2 city in the nation, right? And we've had that experience. We had that experience in the 80s. We had all those things, and everyone knows in Pittsburgh what that meant. And then the circle on you can see in rural Pennsylvania, all that white, right? All the places that in the 10 years before COVID, right? Lost population while the country grew by 7%, right? We're not exactly killing it on the demographic scale here, right? And what's worse, or as bad, we train everybody for those, careers in the future, and then we send them out of state. 2 of the top 3, at least according to this particular data set, it's not perfect, the data set on graduates in AI, but 2 of the top 3 training institutions graduating the top leading edge minds in AI are in Pittsburgh, Carnegie Mellon, and in Philly, University of Pennsylvania. But you'll see that where are all the AI startups in California, right? We train them here, and then we send them across the country. That makes no sense. So can we change that? What can we do in Pennsylvania to make this the place people want to stay, right? And not everything will be broadband. It is not the silver bullet, but I'll tell you, if you can get, and we'll talk about it, a $50 for 10 gigabits per second in Northern California, you're not staying in Oakland, Pittsburgh. And Google isn't going to build that big campus there. All right. So I think, and I put that here, this is probably not a controversial thing for this audience, right? But you'll have to talk to people out in your communities and they'll talk about this. Look, affordable high-speed internet is fundamental for economic improvement. Debbie mentioned this before. Tennessee, right? Chattanooga, Tennessee, that hotbed of innovation you all know about, right? That's $2.7 billion in ROI in 10 years and 10,000 jobs, purely tripled the world, right? None of the other stuff. It's also now one of the leading places for quantum computing in America because it has the network. Medina County, Ohio, right? That's another place. $1 billion in economic growth in a few years, purely based on growth, right? The census has already said that rural communities, pre-pandemic, that had affordable high-speed internet lost fewer people than places that didn't. Carnegie Mellon says 3% housing value if you have fiber to the home, right? And listen, all that statistics is great. Does anybody here in a rural county who thinks that you can attract remote workers back home, bring back your native homes, boomerang your sons and daughters for their high finance job or their high tech job or anything else, if they don't have enough internet connection to do that remote job effectively and consistently without any glitches? Do you think anyone can take that risk? Right? Do they come? Can you really build smart agriculture and have smart tractors and robotic milking and all that stuff, in rural PA without the connectivity to make sure that works and works efficiently? Can you do are you a manufacturing site that's really going to attract everyone? Forget your fantastically cheap rural electricity and the massive amounts of space and the connection to the highways. If they don't have the internet connection for the facility, or let's say, we'll build a special pipe for that. For the workers there, so they can go to school there, and they can make sure their kids are doing well, and the Netflix is what it needs. The telehealth everyone's talked about, the education for those kids. Do we really think kids in rural Pennsylvania are going to be able to work with AI models? They don't have the connectivity they need to work on those assignments on. So it's not surprising that this is an important thing. All right, what might be surprising? We are here and we'll beat our chest. I got a gigabit to my area. It's fantastic, right? Yeah, the gigs are already obsolete for this competition. That's horrifying, right? We're killing ourselves, and the standard is 100 megabits, and you have to bend over backwards, and Jen Wakeman's got to put up 15 towers, right, in the middle of COVID, and spend all this money and break her back, and go to have a lawsuit with Winston for $200,000, so she can get 25 megs or 100 megs up, right? And that's a huge win over zero, right? But it's not the speed or the price that's the thing. AIM in Idaho, which has had an open access for a long time, 2 different providers, $15 a month for a gigabit. Now there's an infrastructure fee, you might have to pay it up front, but $15 a month per gigabit. That picture that's on there, that's a year old. I took that photo with my cell phone on Grand Avenue in Oakland, California, like a week into my job when I was going to visit some family, right? 10 gigabits per second for $50 a month. I paid $90 in Pittsburgh for 1/10 the speed. And that's the best I can do. And that's Pittsburgh, right? That's Oakland, California. And that's not the only place doing 10 gigs per second. Idaho, Washington, Oregon, Montana, rural Northeast Mississippi, for God's sake, right? Closer to here, New York State, they gave all their capital project money they gave to people who are doing these kinds of speeds and doing community access projects, right? Dublin, Ohio, right? They announced Alta Fiber. They're going to have that up in another, couple quarters, right? They did last year. And by the way, this slide has been obsolete since the time of giving the presentation, right? Because Google Fiber came out and said, well,
now that Nokia has 25 gigabit XGS PON, we're going to put 20 gigs of speed into Kansas City and North Carolina Research Triangle and Arizona and Iowa. So now we're competing with that, right? These are the speeds and these are the prices, right? And the reason, isn't so surprising is because, like your television, fundamentally, after the glass is laid, all of this is about electronics and then miracle semiconductors and Gordon Moore's, law, right? So just like the TV keep getting bigger, right, and higher definition, and magically lighter, my 11-year-old can carry it now. I mean, when I was a kid, you were about TV, it was a giant cabinet, right? And no one can touch it, right? Now you can walk on out of Costco, right, with one little arm, right? That's all the same dynamics that are affecting this, right? And why is that a problem? Because the history of broadband funding in America, the history of broadband subsidy in America has been consistently not skating to where the puck is going, but skating to where it's been. In 2004, in fact, it's technically true right now, the definition for broadband in Pennsylvania is 1.5 megabits per second. That's like dial-up, that's AOL and You've Got Mail and all the fun that sound, right? And that was obsolete in 2004 when it was the rule that we do a whole bunch of special, carve-outs. Half one from the FCC, 4 megabits per second. It was obsolete when we did it. Half two, 10 megabits per second. Part 25 megabits per second. There are part projects that can be built for the next 5 years that we will give federal money to. They can build up to 25 megabits per second, which we just said. Oh, I lost the slide. What are we doing? Oh, that we just said is already obsolete. How do I put this back?
Yeah.
You got it?
I got it.
Right? B, the program that I have set up with Congress, right? 100 megabits per second. Let me just say something, right? And I know the Brandons are here and whatnot. They're gonna work they're working their magic and they're doing the best they can in this really different slides. If we can't do it perfectly in Pennsylvania, we might not be able to, right? There will be some parts of Pennsylvania that will have to get some much less, lesser capex. So they can build out some sort of fixed wireless or other solution that will serve 100 megabits per second, because that's the statutory requirement, and you're not gonna get 1.16 billion if you don't meet every single one of the 170,000 or 200,000 locations, whether they're the right ones or not, as per Slash's point. But if you don't get all of them, right? The date, and that's like a 3 or 4 year buildup, right? Before that glass is in the ground and there's a ceremony and someone cuts the ribbon, the FCC will define 100 megabits per second as insufficient for serving, right? They're in a process now for a gig, right? That's going to happen maybe next year, maybe the year after. There's some politics involved, so who knows who wins the election, right? But that's already obsolete, and I just showed you that that's not cutting edge. Of what you're trying to do is compete for the workers of the future, right? And so I think the thing that we've got to remember, the rural PA philosophy is better and good enough just isn't good enough. And that, if you get nothing else out of this, right? How can we make it so we're not constantly doing, well, it's better, it's good enough, which is not maybe the attitude of the folks in this room, the folks on the line, but certainly the attitude of all kinds of folks that you're acting, right? Fellow commissioners in this room. Well, I mean, it's a lot better.